You find yourself looking for a pulp adventure to follow in movie format. How about one set in Hollywood in the 1930s, as most pulp stories are set in the 1930s? How about one with secret projects, government agents, mobsters, movie stars, Nazi agents? Well, I have the movie for you. Let's talk about The Rocketeer. This is the Geek Cabal channel. If you've not been here before, my name is Bobbie, and today we're going to be talking about The Rocketeer. It's from 1991. It's a Disney movie, and yeah. So I watched it again the other night, and whenever I say again, I mean I'm pretty sure the last time I watched it was somewhere really close to 1991. Don't know why. Like I remember thinking it was a good movie, and after watching it again, I think it's a good movie. Yeah, so I don't know why I never got around to watching it again. But anyway, for those of you who have not seen it, let's talk a little bit about the cast here. So our main character, Cliff, is played by Billy Campbell. Now, while he has a lot of credits to his name, I've only seen him in a handful of things. Bram Stoker's Dracula, which came out like a year or two later. He's one of the suitors who I believe ends up, I think he's with them whenever they go to fight Dracula towards the end. He's also in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. I'm not 100% certain which one. His character name didn't really jump out at me. But like, I don't recall seeing him in many things. As I was watching the movie, it's like, I don't know if I've seen this guy in anything else. Which is a shame. I thought he did a decent job. I mean, it's a shame because I haven't seen him. He's got, like I said, he's got a lot of acting credits. Then, as Jenny, we have Jennifer Connelly. She's had a very long career. She's in a lot of things, but briefly, I think she's mainly known for Labyrinth, which was back in the 80s, and she's also in the Ang Lee Hulk movie, and she's in a whole lot of movies in between, and several movies after. For a very long time, it almost looked like she wasn't aging. Yeah. So then we have Peavy. Mind you, these characters do not have last names listed in the credits, and I don't think they had last names in the movie either. He's played by Alan Arkin. He also has a very lengthy career. Just briefly, he was in Little Miss Sunshine. He's the uncle that's with them. He's also in the movie Grosse Pointe Blank. John Cusack, his main character, he's an assassin. He plays his psychologist that John Cusack is basically threatening with murder if he doesn't help him. Then we have Timothy Dalton as Neville Sinclair. He got a last name. A movie star in the movie. He too has a very lengthy career. He was in Flash Gordon as I can't think of his character's name, but he was one of the princes. He ruled the tree people. I don't know. I'm sure they had a name other than tree people, but it was nothing as memorable as the Hawkman and Voltan. He was in the movie Hot Fuzz, where he is one of the town elders. And he also played James Bond in two movies, The Living Daylights and License to Kill, which I'd have to check the dates, but I do believe that means he was Bond whenever the Cold War ended. Because up until that point, the Soviets were frequent enemies of Bond. But I believe The Living Daylights is the last movie that actually has the actual Soviets, as the enemy. And then GoldenEye is after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So I'd have to check see when License to Kill came out. He fights drug dealers in that. And for the longest time, I always thought he was, so-so as Bond. But as I've gotten older, I think he did a decent job. It's just a different take. Then we have Paul Sorvino as Eddie Valentine. He's a gangster who has dealings with various characters. He's probably best known for Goodfellas. But he was also, let's see, I don't remember if he's the Montague or the Capulet. I think he's the Capulet in the 90s Romeo and Juliet, the one that takes place in the modern day but uses the dialogue from the play. That one's a trip if you've never seen it. Also in the early seasons of Law & Order, he's one of the detectives. Not the very first season. I think it's the second or third season he comes in, and he's there for a couple seasons. Then we have Terry O'Quinn as Howard Hughes. the actual real life person. He's not a fictional character. He's a real person. Aviation guy, designed a bunch of airplanes, stuff like that. And he's best known for Lost, I believe, but he's also in Tombstone. Not a huge part. Interesting little side fact here. He's the only one of the characters in the movie that wasn't actually able to grow his own facial hair because of something else he was filming. Everyone else in the movie, that's their genuine beards and mustaches and everything they grew for the movie. He didn't have time, so his is a fake. It's a little pencil thin mustache up here. He's also in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, where he plays Commander Riker's former captain, where they're trying to recover the Pegasus, where they were testing a cloaking device in violation of the treaty with the Romulans. It didn't just cloak a ship; it also moved it out of phase, so it can move through solid matter. So yeah, it's a good episode, by the way. If you ever see Enterprise, the last couple episodes, it's Riker on the holodeck recreating those events, which actually leads you to wonder if the whole series was that. But those the holodeck parts, the parts with Riker, it's during that episode. So you know exactly when during the Next Generation it takes place. So a fun little fact for you there. So anyway, what's it all about? Well, our main character Cliff, he's a pilot. Peavy's a mechanic there with him, and they do aerial stunt shows, and they've built a new plane. And as he's test flying it, some cops and robbers type action takes place, where you have some FBI agents and some police chasing some criminals who have stolen a prototype jetpack. And they end up going through the airfield. They shoot down the plane that Cliff is flying. Well, they shoot it, eventually it crashes. And the main criminal type takes the jetpack and hides it there at the airfield, and instead puts, I think it's a vacuum cleaner or something, it looks kind of like it, into the suitcase. And so whenever the feds get him, well, for the burning wreckage, because his car hits a fuel truck, eventually they figure it out. So, by the way, there's going to be spoilers. This movie came out in 1991, okay? It came out 34 years ago. So, you find out that these guys worked for, what was his name, Eddie Valentine, who is in cahoots with Neville Sinclair, who wants the jetpack. And he doesn't feel that Eddie Valentine is going to come through for him, so he sends in his own thug, this gigantic goon, and he literally goes and snaps the guy in half, the survivor, once he tells him what's what. So the guys at the airfield, though, Cliff and them, they find the thing, and they accidentally turn it on, and it fires off because it's a rocket. They get it back, and then they start testing it out, but they're kind of crunched for money because their plane they just spent 3 years building got blown up, and they did some damage to the airfield and the fuel truck. And the guy that owns the whole thing is like, "Hey, so you owe me all this money now," and he tells him to put on a different kind of show there at the air show, and they'll keep a certain percentage, he'll keep a certain percentage, go against the damages. And so they're not too thrilled about that, but it's money. Meanwhile, they're testing the rocket pack, and eventually Alan Arkin's character figures out some of the problems that it has and fixes it, but also he designs a helmet for him to wear, and the helmet has a fin here, and that's for steering, because there's no rudder on the thing. So you've got a whole lot of cops and robbers type stuff going on, and like I said, all this is set against the backdrop of 1930s Hollywood. So this is peak old Hollywood. You've got your starlets and your big stars, and the fancy wear, and a lot of Art Deco type things going on. Now, I have to apologize, I'm not a designer, so I actually don't know, and I hate to admit this, I don't know if Art Deco is only the term for the more modern recreation of that look, or if the actual look from the 30s is called Art Deco. But you see it a lot in New York, how you see the top of the Empire State Building, and it's certain art type. If you see the Ghostbusters movie, Egon comments whenever they get to Dana Barrett's apartment on her floor. He's like, "Oh, Art Deco, very nice. Like the decoration there is all Art Deco." And Batman the Animated Series has a bit of that look to it. So you got a lot of that going on style wise, and like I said, it's when people dressed up when they went out, men were they dressed like men, suits and ties, and women, their flowing gowns and everything. The kind of thing you see in other pulp movies like The Phantom or The Shadow, and so you got this going on, and then you have like these guys, they're out in the fields and everything, and they've got that Depression era garb down pat pretty well. People telling stories about World War One and things like that, and you got a lot of little elements going on to contribute to the feel of the movie, the look and everything. So eventually, they realize through sheer circumstance that Cliff has the rocket, and Neville comes to this realization and realizes that he can figure out where all this is if he can seduce Jenny, and so he tries that. Although it ultimately doesn't work because Cliff realizes what's going on and jumps in the middle of it and everything. So he has to, Sinclair kidnaps Jenny, and he has her there in his house, presumably up in the Hollywood Hills. And I don't know what it's called, but the building they're in is a well-known building in Hollywood, because I've seen the interior in other movies, and might even be the same place that they filmed for Deckard's apartment in Blade Runner, actually, because it looks kind of similar now that I think about it. But she finds out that Neville is a Nazi agent, and around this time, Howard Hughes has already figured out that the thing they brought him is not his jetpack, so it's not destroyed. And they eventually grab Cliff and bring him in. And he already had Peavy, and Peavy had been explaining, some modifications he made, and him and Hughes are talking shop and stuff. And so Howard's like, well, the Germans were doing this, and they were making mistakes, and we managed to fix the mistakes, but we thought it was just like a one-off, and the Germans had abandoned it until we saw this film. And so they roll some film of the Germans just having legions of men with jetpacks soaring over the skies of Europe and eventually the United States. And it's animated, but so he's like, so clearly they have bigger plans than we thought, and we need to stop them because the Nazis are, bad because they're Nazis. So Cliff can't go along with that because he wants to trade the jetpack for Jenny, or at least that's the plan. Then earlier in the film, we'd seen this thing about a Zeppelin coming from Germany to the United States. It's going to go over the United States and eventually to Los Angeles. And so they're going to meet at Griffith Observatory at 4 in the morning. So he's getting ready to hand over the jetpack. You've got Eddie Valentine's there with his goons. Neville's there with his big Frankenstein goon. And he's got Jenny. And before everything can go down, Cliff's like, so Valentine, like, you really don't care who you work for, huh? It's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, he's a Nazi, right? And he's like, is that true? He's like, do I look like a fascist to you? And he's like, that's not a no, something like that. He's like, is it true? He goes, I'm paying you a lot of money, Valentine. Like, it doesn't matter who you work for. Valentine gives him one of those, look, I may make my money dishonestly, but I'm an American and I'm not going to work with the Nazis. So his guys turn their guns on Sinclair, and Sinclair yells something in German, and a bunch of Nazi stormtroopers show up. And then that's all going to go down, but then the FBI shows up, and then Sinclair escapes aboard the Zeppelin with Jenny and his main goon, and then Cliff takes off after them. And as I had noted earlier in the movie, much like the Hindenburg, this Zeppelin is full of hydrogen. So you can probably guess where all this is going to go. And so he gets aboard. Basically everyone on board except for him and Jenny get killed. Sinclair sends his big goon up top. Cliff's able to knock him unconscious, but he's like tied himself off to the thing so he won't fall off. So he goes swinging down through the front window, hits the pilot, who then goes out a side window, so he's dead. Then the captain gets thrown out, and there's another guy in there. He gets thrown out, and finally Sinclair takes the rocket. And what Sinclair doesn't know is earlier in the movie, the rocket had been hit by a bullet. So it has a hole that's leaking fuel, and before Cliff took off to go do all this, he patched it with chewing gum. And as he puts it down and is getting ready to slide it across to Sinclair, he takes the chewing gum off of it. So Sinclair grabs it and blasts off, and he doesn't make it very far before the thing explodes and sends him as a fireball plummeting to the earth, to the Hollywood sign, which said Hollywood Land, and he took out the land part. Then Cliff and Jenny are rescued at the last moment by Peavy and Howard Hughes, who come up in a helicopter-type contraption that he's got, and they get off there right as the whole thing blows up. And then the next day, they see in the paper that they say that Sinclair died whenever the blimp smashed into his car in the Hollywood Hills or something, covering up, what he was. And then Howard Hughes brings a plane to give to Cliff to kind of restart his air show business and everything. And Jenny, it turns out, had grabbed all the schematics that Peavy had drawn earlier that they took. So Neville Sinclair had them, and so she grabbed them, so she gives them back to Peavy, and he's like, I guess I can rebuild the thing or something like that. And that's basically where the movie ends. So overall, very entertaining. It's an older movie, it's from '91. So some of the green screen stuff, you can tell that it's not. You can tell that it's green screen. Certain things look a little out of place, especially if you were alive in the transition from practical effects to digital effects, and notice the changes in movies. So you do see some of that. So some of the effects are a little shaky, but overall the movie looks really good. And good plot, adventure, daring do, and all that fun stuff. Like I said, it's a good pulp adventure. So I had the feeling that they probably wanted to do more with it. I think it's based on a comic book, if I remember right. And from looking at the information on this, there was an animated series at some point. So maybe someday they'll do something else with it. Hopefully long after Bob Iger's gone from Disney, because he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. And hopefully whenever someone like Kathleen Kennedy can't get anywhere near it. So, but yeah, if you've got Disney Plus, check it out, or buy you a copy. I don't know how hard it is to get a hold of a DVD or Blu-ray copy of the movie. I don't think Disney does that vault baloney anymore, so... but I also don't know how recently it would have been re-released, because again, it's a movie from 1991 that had no follow-up or anything, so... you do occasionally see like newer figures for it, and again, I think there are some comics and stuff. But yeah, if you like pulp adventures and whatnot, and you haven't ever checked this movie out, you should definitely check it out. I'd probably give it a 6.5, 7, somewhere in there. Decent. It's not spectacular, but it's pretty good. But yeah, so let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Have you seen it before? Do you plan on watching it? Have you ever read the comics or anything like that? Any kind of, do you own any of the figures, anything like that? If you have seen it, do you want to see a sequel, or should they just maybe reboot at this point? Because like Alan Arkin and Paul Sorvino are both passed away. And Billy Campbell and Jennifer Connelly are, 34 years older now, so. But, yeah, like I said, just let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Sharing and commenting helps grow the channel. And I'd like to thank everyone who helped us get over 600 subscribers not too long ago. Literally couldn't do it without you folks. And, yeah, let me know if you want to hear me talk about some other movies. Since I've mentioned them, I am probably going to do some videos on The Phantom and The Shadow at some point. And maybe just maybe pulp movies in general kind of video, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, that's all I've got for today, so I'll be seeing you folks later.